The date that this video is posted proves that these predictions are being made ahead of time, as do these time-stamped emails and forensic notes PDF documents. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. To confirm his signs and connections, God pairs the numbers 9, 23, and 44 together. As the basketball president who wore jersey number 23 in high school became the 44th president in 2009. The predicted bomb explosions in America's biggest city on the half moon phase on March 22nd, because I'm going to break this up into different videos, and so the last paragraph in this email will be a separate video. But what I am saying is that God has brilliantly demonstrated through his signs that the predicted explosions in New York City will be on the half moon phase of the lunar cycle, okay? And again, 23, 9, and 44 are paired together because the basketball president who wore 23 in high school became the 44th president in 2009. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination, and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And if we think about it, one simple way in which he would provide a second witness for us is through pairing certain numbers together, such as 9, 23, and 44. And I know this because I have been studying his big picture of signs, patterns, and connections from morning until night for more than full-time hours for more than 7 years. And so, the predicted explosions in America's biggest city on the half moon phase on March 22nd will be 9 days after the blood moon lunar eclipse centered over America that will begin on March 13th, 2025. March 13th, 2025 will be exactly the 90th prime number of months, which is 463 months, after the release of the movie Half Moon Street that is 90 minutes long. Okay, so the 90 minutes is a second witness to the 90th prime number of months connection. The plot of the movie takes place in the UK's biggest city, and it involves Middle East terrorism, and the name of the protagonist is Dr. Lauren Slaughter, which implies that the result of the predicted bombs will be a slaughter. If the name Slaughter does not imply this, it implies that the Antichrist 44th president will lead a slaughter. Okay, the meaning of the name isn't a coincidence, so it either means that it's either pointing to the slaughter with the predicted bombs, or it's just a general, bigger picture symbolism for the slaughter that's coming through the Antichrist, the 44th president. But anyway, this movie that's 90th prime number of months away are back and is 90 minutes long, gives us the number 9, obviously. And this pairs with the cost of the movie, which was $4 plus $4 million. It also bombed at the box office, as in the bombs in New York City that are predicted, and it made 2.3 million, which hints at 23, which pairs with the 44 and the 4 plus 4 million, which is a second witness, as I explained. It's a pairing of 23 and 44, which confirms the signs and connections. And these two numbers also pair with the 90th prime number of months, because it pairs with the 9. And again, also the movie is 90 minutes long. This is amazing. This discovery here of this movie, Half Moon Street. This was random. I didn't expect to find this movie. I just was typing in Half Moon or something. I forget how I found it. But it was obviously the Holy Spirit. And so, because I've never heard of this movie, and the reason why is because it bombed. It's an obscure movie that no one knows about. It bombed at the box office. It starred Sigourney Weaver and what's his name? Caine. Forget his name. Michael Caine. All right. Now, what's interesting about this too, by the way, and I didn't look into it enough to confirm it with any connections or numbers. But Michael Caine starred in a movie that's very similar to a movie that Sigourney Weaver starred in. Michael Caine starred in a movie named Dirty Rotten Scoundrels with Steve Martin. And there's a woman in the movie too that plays, they all are con artists, okay? But there's another movie that Sigourney Weaver stars in which she, with I think Jennifer Love Hewitt, and they are also predatory con artists. The two, if I recall, I do recall Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, but if I recall, it's the same with the other movie, and I forget the name of that movie. But Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is about preying on the woman, the rich woman, and by charming her, which is the same in the other movie with Sigourney Weaver, but it's obviously charming a man to steal the man's money. And then at the end of the movie in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, the woman, it's a surprise, it's a twist at the end with the plot, she ends up stealing from them. She's playing that she's the woman that's naive to what's going on, and then in the end, she's the one that cons them. And then she offers to team up with them in future cons of other people, or something like that. But anyway, the two men, and them being the cheaters and the liars, the villains, the liars, is symbolism for the two antichrists that are described in Bible prophecy, who are liars. Both of them are communists, and that's what communists do. They constantly lie, because communism is evil and is from Satan. That's another subject, though. But that's literally the case. When the prediction comes to pass, it'll prove that this worldview, the biblical Christian worldview, is the true worldview, and that is the truth about the left. And socialism, in all of its degrees and forms, it is from Satan. Okay? And anyway, that's what the Dirty Rotten Scoundrels symbolizes. It's amazing. So that's also why I believe this movie is relevant, with starring Michael Caine and Sigourney Weaver. And in the other movie, it's two actresses, which also would be symbolism for two antichrists that are conning the men. It's like the reverse. It's the same plot in a way. And but that's interesting, though, that those two actors come together in this particular movie. All right? Which is this movie that bombed at the box office named Half Moon Street, in which Sigourney Weaver is Dr. Lauren Slaughter. All right, now the reason why God has used this movie, Half Moon Street, is because of him pointing to this other movie, which is very important, what I'm about to explain. This other movie named The Man in Half Moon Street. So, very similar titles. The two movies have nothing to do with each other, though. There is another movie named The Man in the Half Moon Street. It's a coincidence. I have no idea how it is that there are two movies named Half Moon Street. In other words, did the movie that was made in the 1980s have any inspiration for their title from this unrelated movie about a completely different type of plot from the 1940s, which was based on a play, as I'll explain, that dates back to into the 30s. Okay, well let's get into this. So there's another movie, The Man in Half Moon Street. It was released 3 days after the Trinity bomb. Trinity means three. So this movie, and this Trinity bomb is extremely prophetic in God's signs. The first nuclear bomb tested. It was tested exactly 333 days before President Trump was born. And the birth date of President Trump is extremely prophetic as well. Furthermore, I just realized this. I didn't realize it before. Trump was born significantly on the same day of a blood moon lunar eclipse. Trump is associated with the moons in God's signs. Trump is the moon child. That's another story. Can't get into it here. And so we have this movie named The Man in the Half Moon Street, released 3 days after the Trinity bomb. And Trump was born 333 days after the Trinity bomb on the day of a blood moon lunar eclipse. That can't be a coincidence. That's, in other words, astounding confirmation that this 3 days between the Trinity bomb and this movie released, The Man in Half Moon Street, is relevant. It's significant. Also, the movie was released 6 plus 6 plus 6 days. The number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy is associated with 666 before the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. Actually, it also means that it was the movie was released 7 plus 7 plus 7 days after the movie, which gives us 3 sets of 7. And the movie was released exactly 73 weeks. I didn't finish explaining that, I don't think. The movie, The Man in Half Moon Street, was released 7 plus 7 plus 7 days, right? Because Nagasaki's bomb was dropped 3 days after Hiroshima. And it is 6 plus 6 plus 6 days to Hiroshima from the movie. Therefore, it is 7 plus 7 plus 7 days to Nagasaki. Nagasaki being the place of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, the hidden Christian sites, which incidentally were visited by the Pope 666 days exactly after UNESCO named the hidden Christian sites in Nagasaki to be World Heritage Sites. Anyway, 7 plus 7 plus 7 days is 3 sets of 7. This is important in God's signs, and it's associated with Trump because the Israelites did or enacted a symbolic 3 sets of 7 before the walls of security, as in the border wall, the southern border security, collapsed in God's judgment in the Bible on Jericho after the Israelites blew trumpets. And 73 is symbolic of 3 sets of 7, and the movie was released exactly 73 weeks before Trump was born. And again, Trump was born exactly 333 days after the Trinity bomb. So it goes back full circle here. Do you see that? That's quite something, especially given that the date Trump was born was the day of a blood moon lunar eclipse, which was prophetic and significant for reasons I'll explain in another video. Now, from Wikipedia, it says this regarding this movie, The Man in Half Moon Street. The Man in Half Moon Street is a 1945 American melodrama horror romance science fiction film dealing with a man who retains his youth and cannot die, living throughout the ages. The plot is similar to Oscar Wilde's Picture of Dorian Gray, except that there are more logical explanations for the eternal youth of the main character. The film is based on a 1939 West End play of the same title by Barry Lyndon and stars Nils Astor and Helen Walker with direction by Ralph Murphy. So we have this movie based on this play of the same title, written by Barry Lyndon. That's quite interesting because God is using Stanley Kubrick in his movies, and he didn't make very many, and the ones that he did make are considered to be some of the best movies ever made. One of them is named Barry Lyndon. Okay, and again, the play was made by Barry Lyndon, and that is the inspiration for the movie. Kubrick, speaking of Trump, Kubrick was born on July 26, 1928, exactly 100 years before it is predicted that Trump will die on July 26, 2028. Kubrick died on the date 3/7, which since that's 3 sets of 7. I'm sure there's more to this, which I'm not aware of at this time, the significance of this 100 years. Regardless, though, we are tying this together here because Trump is definitely, as I just explained, connected to the movie here. And the movie is based on Barry Lyndon's play, and Kubrick made a movie named Barry Lyndon. I mean, what are the odds of that, right? Also, Kubrick is associated with the moon because arguably, well, I'll put it this way. Steven Spielberg said that the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey, was the big bang for his generation of movie producers and directors. All right, so you could argue that maybe Kubrick's most influential movie was 2001, A Space Odyssey. Regardless, it's one of his movies. It's one of the big movies he made, and it involves the moon hugely. The plot of the movie involves the moon. That's where the obelisk is discovered that leads them to Jupiter, if you don't recall the plot of that movie. So the moon is very prevalent in the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey. And that would be significant in terms of this connecting to Trump and the movie The Man in Half Moon Street. Okay, because arguably Kubrick is also associated with the moon. So Barry Lyndon is actually a pseudonym for the man that wrote the famous play, The Man in Half Moon Street. The play about immortality, okay, now I'm actually jumping ahead here. You could go to this link and read what the play is about, but this play is about immortality. So is the movie, which I already did mention up here. So again, in the movie, and this is the big underlying point, this is the reason why God is pointing to all of this. It's because of the plot of the movie. It's all about the plot of the movie. It's not about moons. It's not about, interesting connections involving the number 3. It's not even about the 3 sets of 7s. It's about the plot of the movie. That's the purpose here. It's not, okay, the moon just brings us to it. It's the tool God is using to tie it all together to point us to the plot of the movie, because God is pointing to the plot of the movie to reveal the future. What is going on here? What is about to happen? Okay? This is part of a bigger theme God is demonstrating in his big picture of signs. This theme of agelessness, reversing aging, immortality without God, which is a lie that people will be deceived with. As Eve was deceived with this same lie at the beginning of the age, when the serpent told Eve that she shall surely not die if she were to disobey God and eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So it all comes full circle. This is the big lie that's coming at the end of the age here. And that's why God is pointing to this movie through all of what I've explained so far. because of the plot of the movie, which is about this character, and this is the plot of the play as well. It's about this character that discovers a scientific method involving, I think it's called in the movie a parathyroid. It's a gland, I think it's fictitious. It's a gland that is used to, with surgery, insert into someone, and this makes them not grow old. But it's a parallel with what's happening, because the mark of the Antichrist will be sold to people as a way to reverse aging. The mark of the Antichrist is the thing, which is transhumanism technology, and the primary goal of transhumanism technology is to extend life and conquer death and become immortal, etc., without God, with technology. It's the same story in Genesis chapter 11. Okay, so now let's see here. This ties together with what we are predicting in this video, the dirty bombs in Manhattan on the half-moon lunar phase. So again, Barry Lyndon is a pseudonym. He wrote a famous play, The Man in Half Moon Street. The play is about immortality, and it first ran, the first showing of the play was on the date 3/22. And that's astounding, because this is what God is using to symbolize what I have just described, because of Genesis 3:22. When God, after Eve and Adam had eaten the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, after the lie that the serpent told Eve regarding how she shall surely not die, God speaks in Genesis 3:22 about the possibility of them becoming immortal from eating the tree of life. This is all a metaphor, of course, right? All of these things symbolize things. The tree of life, for example, it's not a wooden tree, and it's not an actual juicy fruit that gives a person immortality. It's God and his teachings, and his teachings lead us to eternal life. It's Genesis 3:22 where God speaks to this potential for immortality. And because of this, kicks out of Eden Adam and Eve. So Genesis 3:22 symbolizes all of this, is what I'm saying. Genesis 3:22 symbolizes this quest for immortality without God. And that's why God is using this date, for example, 3:22. And the astounding proof of that is this play that God is pointing to by Barry Lyndon, The Man in Half Moon Street, the plot of which is exactly what I am speaking about, for which the 3:22 symbolizes. So it is astounding beyond words that the first showing of this play was on the date 3:22. Again, this was known prior to the discovery of this play, that God is overwhelmingly using this 3:22 number in various ways, including the date 3:22, to symbolize Genesis 3:22, which symbolizes what I just spoke of, which is this quest for immortality without God. And that's what this movie is, or play is about, and the movie. So again, it's astounding beyond words that the first showing of the play is on 3:22. It's proof of what I'm saying here. It was on 3:22 in 1939. Now, 39 is significant as well. For one, it hints at 3 nines, and the number 9 is the most important number in God's signs. As from the Bible, it symbolizes God's judgment. And I should say the number 9 is the most important number in God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections that is only being explained on this channel, I should say. And it's exactly 86 years before the predicted half-moon lunar phase date, 3/22/2025, when it's predicted that the dirty bombs will explode in Manhattan. Why is 86 years relevant? 86 is this 29th semi-prime number. A number that is only divisible by 2 other prime numbers is a semi-prime number. And 29 is the number that symbolizes the moon, especially the lunar cycle. And that's what we are talking about with this half moon date, 3/22. The reason why the bombs will explode on this date is because it is the half moon phase, and it's also the date 3/22, which the significance of I have just explained. But we are having this connection from this movie with half moon in the title, and the play, I should say. It's exactly an exact number of years before the half moon date in 2025 on which the predicted explosions will occur. And that's astounding because 86 is a number that hints at the moon through the 29th semi-prime number. Because again, 29 symbolizes the moon with its cycle of 29 and a half days. This isn't the first example. This has been demonstrated before by God. The number 29 symbolizes the moon. Not only that, if God were to symbolize 9/11 with only 2 numbers, it would be 29 or 92, as the 2 is a hint at 1 and 1. And the 9/11 events occurred in Manhattan, and this 29th semi-prime number of years connects to the prediction for Manhattan. But, so, what's also astounding here is that the play ran for 172 shows, and 172 is 2 times 86. And again, 86 is the 29th semi-prime number. So we're having another moon connection here. The title of the show that ran for 172 shows is The Man in Half Moon Street. So why is it 2 times 86? In other words, why is it 2 times the 29th semi-prime number? Well, it's 86 years, the 29th semi-prime number, between the first showing of this play that ran for 172 shows to the predicted 2 dirty bombs. That would be the reason for the 2 and the 86 or 29th semi-prime number. So that's another second witness. And this is how God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections works. It works on the principle of second and third and multiple witnesses confirming a matter, as the Bible says is required. And this is what makes what is being explained on this channel true and not a product of one's imagination and different and unique than everything else on the internet that claims to be an analysis of God's prophetic signs. And so this is a second witness. The number of shows is a second witness to the relevance of the 86 years from the first show, because 172 is 2 times 86, and I just explained how that's relevant. Okay. Now, the play about immortality first ran on 3/22 in 39, and the 39th president became the oldest living president in the 4th state exactly 40 plus 40 years later. Okay? Jimmy Carter, the 39th president, became the oldest living president on the date 3/22 in 2019. He was in the 4th state, and it was exactly 40 plus 40 years after the play was released about immortality. Again, him becoming the oldest living president on the date 3/22 is another one of these signs, a very important one, with this theme of aging and immortality. That's why the oldest living president became the oldest living president on the date 322. But now we have it connecting exactly to the movie about immortality. It's an astounding connection, confirming this truth about the date 322 being important in God's signs, and it being part of this theme of the big lie at the end of the age, which will be the promise of immortality without God through taking the mark of the Antichrist. Now, the oldest living president became the oldest living president on the date 322, and he's the 39th president, and he became the oldest living president exactly 39 years after the Georgia Guidestones were built in the fourth state. And again, he became the oldest living president and is from the fourth state. And he became the oldest living president in the fourth state exactly 39 years. The 39th president became the oldest living president in the fourth state exactly 39 years after the Georgia Guidestones were built in the fourth state. And that's because, of course, the 44th president is the Antichrist. In other words, the 39 years to the 39th president is for pointing to the play and movie, The Man in Half Moon Street, which first showed in 39. That's why the 39th president. Do you see the reason for this connection of the 39th president becoming the oldest president exactly 39 years after the Georgia Guidestones were built? The Georgia Guidestones are a mockery from Satan regarding the Ten Commandments. They're these tablet stones, giant tablet stones on which they have the 10 Antichrist commandments. Long story short, I explain it in other Jimmy Carter videos. Okay? And so Carter became the 39th president, became the oldest living president exactly 39 years after the Georgia Guidestones were built. But we have this movie released in 39, exactly 44 plus 40 years before the 39th president became the oldest living president. And the oldest living president hints at immortality, and that's what the plot of the play is about. So do you see? That's the reason why the 39th president became the oldest living president on the day that he became the oldest living president, on the date 322, which, by the way, was 3 months and 22 days after the prior oldest living president died on November 30th, 2018, George H.W. Bush. So it was 3 months and 22 days from the death of the oldest living president to the date that Jimmy Carter became the oldest living president on the date 322. More confirmation of this theme of what I am saying, it pointing to Genesis 3:22 and his quest for immortality through technology and without God. So, in other words, when the predicted bombs explode on the half moon phase, because of the connections I'm explaining in this video, it will be pointing to the play and movie The Man in Half Moon Street, which is for the purpose of pointing to the plot of the movie and play, which is again about this quest for immortality, the big lie at the end of the age through technology and without God. This gets us to the prophetic significance of the half moon. Why is God doing all of this on the half moon? Why is the date 322 regarding this theme of promise of immortality without God? Why is it on the half moon? Why are the two predicted dirty bombs going to occur on the half moon? Which will confirm all of what I'm saying in this video regarding this big picture of signs that points back to the Man in the Half Moon Street and the plot of its movie regarding this quest for immortality without God. So why the half moon? What is the significance of the half moon connected to all of this? Well, it symbolizes division. Jesus said, this is tough for many people to accept, but Jesus said, and it's very, very important, Jesus said, do not think that I have come to bring unity and peace. I have come to bring division by the sword. He said, do not think that I have come to bring unity, I have come to bring division. That's because Jesus, speaking for God, being God in the flesh, this is because God's prerogative, God's plan with the capital P is division. It's the opposite of the communists. That's why the communists are evil and are from Satan, working for Satan. Satan's design is to blur distinctions and divisions. The left today is on a quest to abolish the distinction, for example, between man and God. And the division, this distinction, the left is focused on abolishing distinctions. The distinction between man and God, the distinction between man and woman, the distinction between the profane and decent or clean, the distinction between animal and man. All right? And so God is also interested in dividing, distinguishing true Christians from quote-unquote Christians. This will be done through the mark of the Antichrist. That's the purpose of the mark of the Antichrist, to test the faith of quote-unquote Christians. The Bible prophecy says that those who take the mark of the Antichrist will go to hell. The vast majority of quote-unquote Christians have already taken the mark of the Antichrist. Nowhere in the Bible does it say one cannot repent after having taken it. So this mark of the Antichrist, like I'm explaining this in this video, will be used to promise age reversal and immortality through this technology, this transhumanism technology, without God. And those who fall for the lie will not be deserving of the kingdom. The only way to the kingdom is through God's mercy. So, that's the reason for the half moon symbolism. It's a division, which is the underlying purpose of life and the creation. God is highly interested in dividing and separating and protecting from those he wishes to protect or things he wishes to protect from the outside. In other words, borders, which is why the left is anti-borders. Trump wants to build a wall, they are against it, right? Just for a symbolic example. People want to protect their bodies, the left is against that. They want to force people to, or compel people to put the thing inside them. We have these borders. Each cell in our body has a border protecting it from disintegrating into the rest of the body. So that's the reason for the half moon symbolism. It's division, which is what will be done through the mark of the Antichrist. Which is why this half moon and the prediction for this half moon points to the play The Man in Half Moon Street about a quest for immortality without God.